So unless your current iPhone is completely falling apart and you're in dire need of a new iPhone upgrade so you can actually get a phone that works, I'm going to say hold off on upgrading your current iPhone to the 14 Pro Max, and I'm going to talk about this video why I think that is, because there's a bunch of reasons moving forward that you should definitely consider waiting for that new 15 Pro Max or whatever Apple's going to call it. But without further ado, let's talk about why the iPhone 14 Pro Max might not be the upgrade for you. Let's get into it. So the first thing I want to do in talking about the current state of the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max is comparing it to the previous years and going back maybe even 2-3 years to those iPhones and kind of see how it stacks up, at least from a spec and a usability standpoint overall, to see if it's really worth it. So in my opinion, if you have an iPhone 12 Pro or 13 Pro, so those are the ones that got that new design language change. They went from those rounded edges to those more squared off industrial design. So the feel in the hand between the 12 Pro, 13 Pro, and 14 Pro is exactly the same. You still have those nice rails, you have the stainless steel, it's still kind of hefty in the hand, it's got a good thickness to it, it feels very premium in the hand overall. And then when it comes to the displays of those three phones, yes, you are still using a 60Hz display on the 12 Pro Max, but it has that 120Hz sample touch rate, which makes it feel a lot snappier than most 60Hz displays. And then with the 13 Pro Max and the 14 Pro Max, those displays are literally identical, minus I think 2 ppi. So I think it's 460 ppi on the 14 Pro Max, and then 458 ppi on the 13 Pro Max, and that just has to do because there's a little bit more pixels because of that dynamic island versus the notch overall. And then if you're an iPhone user, from a usability standpoint, the experience is pretty much identical. That is, either the gift or curse of using an Apple iPhone, right? iOS, whether you have an iPhone 10 or an iPhone 14 or the new 15 that will release in 6 months, the experience is going to be relatively identical, minus a couple of hardware and software features that are maybe on the 1% of the new iPhones. But for the most part, iOS 16 runs as iOS 16 should on all of those phones. So the camera is going to be the same, surfing the web is going to be the same, using Twitter, using YouTube, getting your work done, the applications that you use on the 12 Pro is still going to be able to be used on the 14 Pro and vice versa. So if you're an iPhone user, then you know that iOS 16 is going to be the same experience from the older phones even to the new phones, just with a little bit more optimization on the new phones. But for me, a good example is that I have a 13 Pro Max right here, and we're using the 14 Pro Max to currently record this video. But I use a 14 Pro Max, and after, maybe a day or so, you kind of got used to a dynamic island. The dynamic island went away. All the cool little functions and animations that go with it, like the timer, like the navigation, things kind of blopping into there to make it look, for lack of a better term, kind of cute the way that it actually is used and how it actually portrays itself. Once you get over that little honeymoon period, the dynamic island, again, it just shows you notifications in real time, which you can easily do on the 13 Pro Max by just swiping down and looking at your notification center or looking at your control center to see all the notifications. And notifications still come in. Maybe they don't come in the same exact way visually, but notifications still come in from the top and from the notch on the 13 and 12 Pro Max. Some other things that the 14 Pro has over the older models is that you do have that new crash detection and the emergency SOS. So they're nice safety valves to have. So depending on who you are, you might value those things differently. Like, I'm not a big hiker. I don't go hiking into the wilderness. If I don't have cell phone coverage, I'm usually not in those situations. So having an SOS feature does not sound that appealing to me. Yes, it's very cool in practice, and it's going to save a decent amount of people for sure, and I love that feature. But for me personally, it's not something that's going to make me upgrade from the 13 over to the 14. And then the crash detection feature, it is also very nice, but we saw with some early reports that it was getting initiated during roller coaster rides because that was mimicking the force and the inertia and the physics and the gravity that iPhone thought would go with only a regular crash or a car crash, versus the roller coaster gives you the same exact feeling, but again, you're a lot safer in a roller coaster. So even crash detection has had its kind of downfalls overall. And then when it comes to that 48 megapixel rear shooter, yes, that's a great upgrade overall, but by default, and for most people, they're not going to change to the 48 megapixel RAW, because by default, the iPhone is still taking 12 megapixel pictures overall because they're downsized to not take up so much space. Because if you take images with that 48 megapixel camera, you're looking at images that are anywhere from 50 to 200 megabytes per image. Now that's per image versus maybe doing something that's 3 to 5 megabytes per image with a 12 megapixel camera. So Apple by default is turning that off. So unless you're a real photographer and you really are going to take advantage of those shots, there is no real benefit of using a 48 megapixel camera. Maybe you get a little bit of low light performance, better low light performance. You do get that extra photonic engine, which Apple touts is a new way of processing imaging. But if you look at pictures side by side, for the most part, they're the same and they get the job done, especially in really good lighting. So as I said when I first opened up this video, unless your phone is absolutely done and you can't even turn it on, then it's not really worth upgrading, even if you have all the way down to maybe an iPhone 10. Because now looking into the future, the iPhone 15 is going to be the iPhone for most people because a lot of things are going to change with the iPhone 15. But some of the things that are coming to this iPhone, which are going to be amazing, is first off that we're going to have a USB-C port, and that's going to be the biggest game changer for a lot of people. Now, we still don't know if that's going to be a USB-C port or a Thunderbolt port, but USB-C is going to open up a lot of doors for a lot of people, and it's going to take us back to a time where we can use one single cord for all of our devices. Because my MacBook, my iPhone, my headphones, all my accessories, everything that I use with me charge via USB-C and data transfer via USB-C and Thunderbolt. So having to use Lightning as a form of charging or Lightning as a form of data transfer is a big detriment to anybody's workflow. So having USB-C on the new iPhones is going to be absolutely amazing. So bringing USB-C over is going to help out with faster charging. It's going to help out with faster data transfer speeds, because if you do take those 48 megapixel raw images, getting them off your iPhone, whether you use AirDrop or Lightning cable or email it, it takes a while to get that photo off of the iPhone and onto a computer. So now by using USB-C to plug in, again, like I mentioned, we don't know if it's going to be a Thunderbolt, so we don't know how fast those data transfer speeds are going to be. We just know that it's going to be a lot faster than what Lightning provided. Another reason to hold off is just because the design is going to be a little bit different. I know that I mentioned it's going to feel relatively the same, but the design is going to change a little bit compared to the last 3 iPhones. The last 3 iPhones, aside from the camera getting a little bit bigger, a little bit chunkier, and a little bit thicker, the design has stayed relatively the same, right? The same chamfered edges, the same industrial design, the same flat edges. So now moving over to the iPhone 15, we're supposed to be getting some sort of brushed titanium or brushed aluminum. So the side rails are going to be a little bit different. It's going to have a little bit of a curve on the display, the tiniest little bit of curve. The bezels are going to be smaller. The cameras are going to be a little bit bigger. And then we're also getting rumors that the iPhone is going to be a haptic-based iPhone, meaning that the buttons are on the side. Yes, there's still going to be buttons that you can press, but they're not going to be physical tactile buttons. They're going to be a button that actually responds to touch via haptics, similar to how Apple does it with their trackpad on their MacBooks and MacBook Airs. And what really inspired me to make this video is the fact that I did recently pick up a 14 Pro Max just to kind of really see how it compares again to the 13 Pro Max. We had one earlier for about 2 to 3 weeks just to test out when it first released, but then we had to return them. But now I got one for myself to see if it is worth upgrading from the 13 Pro Max to a 14 Pro Max, or it was what I was feeling just a FOMO situation where I do wish I kind of had it, but at the end of the day, from a function standpoint, it's going to add 0 value. And like I mentioned in my tweet earlier, which I'll post right here, after about 1 or 2 days, that honeymoon period kind of settled down, and I just felt like I was using the same 13 Pro Max all over again with 0 improvements to my overall functionality and my overall workflow with the iPhone, right? I was still using the camera the way I was using the camera before, because I use good lighting overall for most of my videos and most of the shots that I take. The camera didn't get like a big upswing in terms of performance and upswing in terms of quality or clarity. At the end of the day, it was the same thing. I'm still using 4K 30 to record on my A-roll. I'm still using AirDrop to airdrop everything over to my iPad. So aside from the cool gimmicky look of the dynamic island, which does give a nice new feel and look and experience, especially in the beginning, after that kind of went away, it was the same exact phone in my opinion. So I just wanted to make this quick PSA, and I know you can comment down below saying, hey, wait for the iPhone 16 as a joke, or wait for the iPhone 17. This one is a really big one because this is going to be a big difference from a hardware and compatibility standpoint, right? The hardware is going to look a little bit different, and we're going to get USB-C. So if you're coming from an iPhone 10 and you only upgrade every 3, 4, 5 years, and you go to this iPhone 14, you're going to be stuck with Lightning for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So if you can hold off for another 6 months, because Apple will probably announce it in September, if you can hold off for another 6 months, and then wait for that USB-C and your phone can hold on for those 6 months, by all means, definitely hold off, because once we get to that USB-C, then you'll be good to go and you'll be future-proof moving forward. If you buy a 14 Pro right now, you will not be future-proof because you will be stuck with that Lightning port at the bottom. But that is going to do it for this video, everybody. I just wanted to shed some light to see if it was worth it to upgrade to the 14 Pro. You know, maybe if you have an iPhone 6 or 7 or 8 and you have to get a new iPhone, then yeah, the 14 Pro is going to be leaps and bounds better than that phone itself. But if you are still using a 12 Pro or a 13 Pro, definitely hold off at least those 6 months, because then you can upgrade to the 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max, have USB-C, be future-proofed, have the new design language, and then be good to go. And who knows what Apple does with the new camera sensors as well. Maybe do something additional with the LiDAR scanner there. But leave a comment down below what you think. Are you somebody that went from the 13 Pro to the 14 Pro Max? Was it as big of a difference as you wanted it to be? Or is it kind of what I felt, where after a day or two, you're just right back to normal using the iPhone as a tool, because that's at the end of the day what it is? But let me know in the comment down below what you think overall. What iPhone are you currently using, and are you looking forward to upgrading to that 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max? Let me know. I'm always curious to know. But leave a little dolphin in the comments down below if you did make it to the end as well, so I know you made it to the end. And that's gonna do it for this video, everybody. If you want to watch some more macOS, iOS, or iPadOS content, click on one of these videos right here. But until next time, I'm Fernando, and I'm out of here, everybody. Peace.